Hi, and welcome to Member Stories, the stories of our collective and community, the Trend Atelier. And today I'm speaking with Veronica Fossa, who's one of the fascinating members of the community. You are a togetherness and community researcher, speaker, podcaster at the Nourishing Workplace. And you describe yourself as a food experience consultant as well. And your lifelong mission is essentially to help people and organizations uncover and leverage the power of togetherness, which is such a great way to describe what you do. And I don't actually know anyone who does what you do. It's so innovative, the space you've carved for yourself. And essentially, when you talk about togetherness, it's also to spread happiness. And that's very much what we're about at the community, really working towards the greater good. And you say that you're based in Vicenza, I'm not saying it right, and you love making gelato as well. So we'll have to be careful. Some people might start sending requests after watching this video. But I'm really excited for you to tell us a bit more about your work, in the sense that you are really creating these future-facing, engaging experiences around food, color, the senses for online creators, leaders in the event space, conferences, as well as brands. So like I said, your business model and your ideas are incredibly interesting. And so I'm going to hand it over to you. If you could just tell us a little bit more about your work, what you've done through the years, and let our audience know more about you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to hear my work through your words, because it's always interesting how other people see it. And so I've been doing this work for about, I think it started in 2011 when I used to live in Helsinki, or actually even before that. So it's been like over 10 years. And it's taken me a long time to find the right language to describe it, because togetherness, food, people, it's not really a field that people are familiar with, even though I think that most of us know exactly how it feels when you sit together with your family, with your friends, and you're able to create something magical out of it through the experience of eating food. So at a very basic level, that's the thing. And I love to say that food has just this magic power of getting people to collaborate, of getting people from different cultures come together. And through my work, it has helped organizations such as daycare centers, food companies, events, conferences, just have people come together. In some situations, even have people realize that they are creative through their craft and through using, food. So in a way, it's like food with benefits. And of course, people are always included in this. They are part of this process, as well as anything that comes around it, like colors and the space and the senses. So it's a combination of different things that come together, where the end goal is really feeling well, feeling taken care of, and just really reinforcing relationships between ourselves and the other people.
Now, I love that your work also has this kind of component where you're amplifying that message. It's not just that you've been doing it as a consultant and you've been, working with organizations, but you were telling me how you've been working in the workplace around these events, these sort of very different ways of engaging with food. But also, you've really chosen to broadcast that message with your podcast. With I know you've been rebranding. You're going to tell us a little bit more about that, which is really exciting. You really are an entrepreneur in so many ways, and I identify to that, because I could have stayed a consultant and just doing, working behind the scenes with companies, and I would have been very happy doing that. But somehow I felt my mission was to spread this type of approach to my work. And so I guess that leads me to my next question with you, and something that we've definitely been talking about in the community behind closed doors is, can you tell us a bit more about what you feel your mission is? And I guess when I say that your mission, there's a component almost of like what you might want to be remembered for, but obviously, tell us a bit about your mission.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a friend / colleague this morning, and I think it described what I do really well. He said that you are in the business of relationships. So that's a thing, using food as a way to help people feel more connected, to feel taken care of, and to feel better. So what I'm offering is a way. I'm solving a problem that lots of businesses and organizations have in relation to working in silos, not being able to communicate, and now with the pandemic, like working from home and feeling disconnected. And so we are again reconnecting with the external world, but we don't have that practice anymore. Like we have lost that practice, and I've seen that in myself. When I'm surrounded by other people, I need to get used again to that, which is quite weird as a feeling. So in that context, coming together like can help you solve a lot of problems. And I'm just offering an alternative. Some things that I talk about, like stopping for lunch, is something very simple. But in context, we don't stop for lunch because we need to work. We are in this like productivity rut, and we just forget about these beautiful things in life that we usually care about when we are on holiday. So it's just bringing that leisure element into our everyday life. So really simple concept, but that can make huge differences for individuals and businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about, togetherness, and your work also touches upon, and your mission touches upon people's wellness, essentially. And I know that when you were talking about your mission statement in the community, you were also talking about connectedness, and just these beautiful ideas of how you feel essentially your mission is to bring people together, because it's true, food is soul. Food is the soul, it really is. And but obviously I was talking about how you've been an entrepreneur, and it's, all of us in the community have things that we're working on, things that work well, things we want to change. I think even for those of us who everything is fine, we're still constantly trying to improve what we do or learn more. And that's because I guess when you feel you have a mission towards humanity, it can feel like quite a lot of pressure, and it can feel challenging. And I'm just wondering if, what kind of challenges you've experienced along the way in running your own business, podcast, or just in general figuring out your mission. And just really curious to know what it's been like for you.
Yeah. So I've had many challenges as I've been doing this work for quite many years. I've had all different type of challenges, I would say, from making people understand what I was doing. So as a result, I had to spend a lot of time in educating people and raising awareness about what I was doing. And then I also found myself doubting that this whole work made sense, because you have those moments when you're wondering, like, is this the right path for me? So many things, projects I've created, like self-initiated projects, like my podcast, The Nourishing Workplace, or a few years back, a format for workplaces called Meal at Work. they were really a way to test out some of these concepts and to see how people would react to those ideas. And then actually connected to this idea of educating and raising awareness, it's also the fact that it's very challenging to measure the social impact that you have, especially around well-being, wellness. You know, people might give you as a feedback, or I've heard as a feedback, that through my projects, through my training or events, they felt like they were creative people. They rediscovered that they were creative people. They've been able to connect and reinforce relationships. But how do you measure that? And that's an issue for anyone working with this type of like with facilitation or we call community building. And especially like with facilitation, you know exactly when it's done well, you know that it's done well. But if you have never experienced anything like that, you don't know exactly if that might be even better. So I have the same challenges. And as we mentioned, I've gone through a rebranding, and through that rebranding, I re-looked at my case studies from the previous years, and I really thought about, first of all, the process that I've created for my clients, which was something that before I just, I didn't really think that process much through. Then also what type of impact I created for my clients. And that really made me think like, how do I measure what I do? Because we are so used to measure engagement and likes and all of that. And when you have a project like the projects I do with events, with concepts, even like a podcast, you can measure the number of listeners. But does that make sense? Are you really making an impact? So that's something, that I'm thinking a lot about, as well as I'm usually quite prolific, and I've been very prolific in the past 7 years, but now I'm taking a step back and I'm just thinking, how can I make this more sustainable for myself? So instead of creating new things all the time, can I review the things I've done in the past and just repurpose them in a way that they make sense today, and that I can put them in front of other people's eyes. Not everyone is familiar. Most of people are not familiar with my work, so there is still a lot of people that could be introduced to this work around togetherness and food. So it's just a lot of thoughts and tests and trials just to get in front of new audiences and educate more people around the need for coming together.
Yeah, and also just that journey of being a solopreneur and having a big mission, but then it's you and maybe some collaborators, and it's like you have to be your own business coach sometimes, and that's really hard. So finding the support and I guess I can empathize with that, because years ago I started the school, and then I was also consulting, and then I was doing creative collaborations, and I was like, oh my God, I must be like totally confusing people about what I do. But when I listened to my heart and soul, this is the only way I could do it. And it just took some personal growth, and also like working on probably self-confidence to realize, no, this is who I am, take it or leave it kind of thing. And but it is a bit like you're making your life more complicated sometimes when you choose to do a lot. And I really admire the stepping back that you've taken, because I've sort of done the other way this year with creating the community. I've gone like full throttle, but I do think the way you're doing it is the right way and has to be done at some point. For anyone and everyone. And I guess my next question with you, because in terms of futures, and your approach to food in itself is very future forward. It's an advanced way of looking at it. But I was just, would love to know a bit more about how the Trend Atelier community or just the experience has also supported you on your journey, because I know you're part of another community that is supporting your branding efforts, and in terms of the community you are a part of with us, like how does it support your journey?
Yeah, I love being in this community, and maybe I've told you before that through my journey, my last year journey, through my rebranding, I've also really fell in love with trends. And it's something that I've always worked with, but more in an intuitive way. Because through my podcasts and through my work related to food at work, a lot of people were in a similar sphere. And when I started recording the podcast, I've had a lot of insights that were validating my assumptions, and so I had quite a broad perspective about what was going on related to food at work in many workplaces around the world, from like Airbnb to No. I interviewed also the Canvas head of Vibe, and unfortunately he hasn't made to the podcast because then COVID hit, and so it wasn't like relevant in that specific moment. But and lots of like food activists were in the corporate sphere. So I had already those kind of like insights, but it was more like in an intuitive way of extracting information. And so I thought at some point that I wanted to get the methodology. How do trend forecasters and futurists get these insights and get the clients also like trusting them? Because if you are just, trying to predict something, but you don't have hard facts that measure that exactly validate that idea. So I started to look around, and through Julia Mosquen, I came across, she told me about your work, and I really liked the idea that it was very democratic, allow me the word, and very accessible in terms of how much it cost. Because through my research, it felt that trend forecasting was very far off my budget that time. So I thought that's very interesting, and people can also contribute with contents, insights, and it's a very collaborative type of platform. So through being part of the community, I was introduced to a lot of concepts that I wasn't familiar with, and I told you earlier that I really like the syntropic model with the flower, that it shows like that is a give and take in terms of energy, and it made me think a lot about myself as an entrepreneur, that I need to balance, the give and take, which is exactly the same thing that many community builders, need to do. They need to take care of themselves so that you can show up and take care of other people. So I've had a lot of insights in many different ways. And what I really love about it is also that it's very broad in terms of topics that we cover. So I was very inspired the other day to listen to PJ and his team talk about tarots in relation to future foresight, and being like passionate about astrology. I found so many connections, and I can get into that. It could be like I have quite a lot of things to talk about in connection to astrology and food and togetherness. So it's really opening, my eyes about what trends are. And another thing is also that you are changing what trend forecasting is, and just questioning the way that it's been done for decades, because the world is changing, and so we also need to change the way that we are researching and communicating trends.
Yeah, I mean, like yesterday when you shared the draft of your mission statement, and various members started giving you feedback and tinkering with it and stuff like that. Like, I love that part of the community, because to me, okay, like the school teaches methodologies, but the biggest takeaway I hope is that people come away with feeling a real sense of power and responsibility when they are forecasting things.
Yeah.
Especially even if they're not doing a future forecast report, say for a client. Say, for example, you're pitching for a food experience event and you're using future trends as part of your pitch, just to, like you said, bring proof to the client that this is relevant. That in itself really informs another event that then informs all the people that attended it. So it's like this domino effect or butterfly effect. And so I felt when I was a forecaster, there was at the very beginning of my career, there was something a little bit extractive. Just get the next trend, just do the next report. And I was like, no, like we have a role here to play. So that's why I try to really, and everyone does, we're all on the same page. I'm just more vocal about it and sort of driving the train, but really we're all owners of it. It's just, okay, let's unpeel this. What's really the thing here that we're trying to do? Because there's always going to be innovations, but what's behind it all. But
yeah.
And
may I add one thing?
Yeah,
and I think, you know, that's also again something that we've talked about. I think is for me, and I'm sure for most of other people in the community, is not about what's the next trendy colors, or it's more about the big shifts happening in the world and being able to communicate them to your clients and being able to make the change that you want to see. So in a way, as a trend forecasters, we are also curators of our own world and being ambassadors of the type of world we want to see. So the type of world that I want to see is a world that's more connected. And if I can do that through colors, through food, through space, through trends, then that's exactly the type of world I want to see. It's just very perfect.
Ambassador of the world you want to change or create. That's such a great way of putting it. I'm gonna have to like make a quote about that. I'm gonna quote you on that. But finally, let's just, you know, talk. Can you tell us more about what's next for you, like what you're working on, where people can find you? Obviously the links will be in the post.
So I'm really excited because my new website on at veronicafossa.com is going to be up in a moment. At the moment of the recording, I'm just putting the finishing touches. So it's a big step for me because I used to trade with a company name. So this website is with my own personal name. And you'll see some offerings that are very time relevant. And that's, you know, it's part of my strategy to just take a step back and reduce the overwhelm, not just, you know, for myself, but also in general for the people who are going to see my my work. And I'm just very excited because I've taken a year of sabbatical, so I'm excited to get back to work and just to see what the autumn and winter will bring us.
I love that you took this step back to completely rethink. A lot of people did that during the pandemic, and to really have a focus. Several years ago, I went through a stage of really focusing the kind of trend work I wanted to do. And it was the best decision I've ever made. I had to let go of certain kinds of clients, even though I loved working with them. But I think what you're doing, I know it's going to be great. And I'm really excited for you. So thank you so much for sharing. And I can't wait to see what's next with you, and to also finally meet in person someday, as the community was born during the pandemic. But it's been amazing to have you here today. So everyone check out Veronica's link, her new website, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much.